Joseph's brothers come a second time, lesson number 7. And so there was some, we have to remember last Sunday was Joseph's brothers came the first time, and before they can come back, why, they're going to have to, there's be some things that's going to have to be taken care of, and that is that the youngest brother has to go with them in order to meet the conditions that the man that they call had put upon them, which was actually their own brother, but they don't know that yet. So let's look at the memory verse there. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. That's in Isaiah 57:21. And you know, as these brothers, I looked at that verse this morning, and as these brothers have lived their life from the time that they sold Joseph until the time that they find out who Joseph really is, this verse is very much on their conscience. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. They had a guilty conscience, and because they had told their father a lie. They knew good and well that he was live when they left his hands. Now, after that, they have no idea what happened to him. But from that time, from up until the time that they got rid of him, they knew that he was alive. And they had told their father that they had found his coat, they had dipped it in blood, and they had found it, and that some wild beast must have gotten him, you know, is what has happened, you know, but they knew good and well that was not true. Let's look at the emphasis. You got the adult emphasis. I'm going to read the junior emphasis. When the first food runs out, Jacob, which is their father, wants to send the brothers back to Egypt. They refused to go without Benjamin because Joseph said they could not have more food unless they brought their younger brother. Jacob finally consents rather than starve. And you know, Jacob has mourned the death of his son Joseph for several years here. And now the full brother of Joseph, the only other full brother of Joseph, is going to be one that's going to be taken, which is the youngest of the family, which is the baby of the family. And so that's what he is. That was the restriction that was put upon the other 10 brothers, that you have to bring him with you. And what if they don't? Well, remember now, one brother, Simeon, is in prison down there. They're holding him. Joseph is holding him as hostage, more or less. And so, you know, how long did it take them to use up the food that they have gotten the first time? We don't know, but there was a certain amount of time there, because Jacob, their food is running out, and Jacob is sending the brothers back to Egypt there. Let's look at our reading here. Let's start out there with the first reading. And it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said unto them, Go again, buy us a little food. And Judah spake unto him, saying, The man, which he's talking about Joseph, but he don't know that that's Joseph at this time. He just thinks that's the governor of Egypt, the one that's over the seeing of the distribution of the food and selling the food, and which he is that also. But that's what he says here. The man did solemnly protest against us, saying, ye shall not see my face except your brother be with you. And he's talking about Benjamin, so he's talking about the youngest one. To prove that they wasn't spies is the excuse that Joseph is using here. Remember, he accused them of being spies and, put them in jail for 3 days, and then finally decides, well, okay, I'll hold one of you guys, send you back, and then when you come back the next time, you better have that guy with you. You better have that younger brother with you, or I'll know that you're spies then, is what he is saying. And so they understand that. That was pretty plain at how he brought it out there. Ye shall not see my face except your brother be with you. If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, ye shall not see my face except your brother be with you. And Israel, which was Jacob, said, wherefore dealt ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And they said, the man asked us straightly of our state and of our kindred, saying, is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, bring your brother down? Joseph knew exactly what was going on. However, he did not know whether his father was still alive yet. And that was a question that was asked. Is your father still alive? In other words, is Jacob still alive? He could have said, but that would have gave it all away. But is your father still alive? He was curious whether Daddy was still alive, is what he was. And they said, yes, he is. And then, is this all the brothers? And then they explained to him that, no, the youngest one is back home with the father. And then one of them is not anymore. And they didn't offer any reason why. But he was the one that was sold to the Ishmaelites, which was Joseph. And of course Joseph knew that. And and he found out some things on the first visit that he did not know. And such as that one of the brothers stood up for him and was going to let him out. And out of the pit that they had put him in to contain him. And before they was going to kill him. That was their intention. And then they'd seen some Ishmaelites coming through. And so they decided, well, we'll just sell him. That way there won't be no blood on our hands and everything will be just fine then. But little did they know that that old conscience keeps flaring up. Keeps flaring up. When we do sin, that old conscience just keeps flaring up, doesn't it? And that's a good thing. Although at the time it don't seem like a good thing, but that is a good thing because that is trying to get us to go in the right direction. And we today, as we live our life, there will be times when we will do something that we think is right at the time, maybe, and we will say it, and then all of a sudden our conscience will flare up and think, you shouldn't have said that to so-and-so, or you shouldn't have done that to so-and-so, or you shouldn't have reacted in that way. That's our conscience within us. That is the Spirit of God dealing with us and trying to get us back on the right track or get us to retrack and get on the right track. And so conscience is a good thing. Although at the time, especially when we're a sinner, although at the time we lots of times think we need to get this away from us, get it away from us, But that's not the way it should be. Jacob's family had ate the corn that they had bought. And of course, Jacob says to his son, go again and buy some food. Judah told his father that if Benjamin did not go, they could not go. There was no way that we was going to be able to get any food. Matter of fact, we will probably be thrown in prison and be executed as spies, because that's what the guy told us that we were. And the only ticket that we have to get out of Egypt free is to take our brother. That's the only thing. We may not even make it out then, but that's the only ticket that we have to get food and to get back, and we better play by the rules. You know, when we're in God's family, we've got to play by the rules.
Amen.
We got to play by the rules. When God tells us to do something, we better do it. And you know, how many times when God tells us to do something, we try to pull back? Or if God tells us not to do something, we want to go do it, you know. That's kind of human nature, isn't it? You know. But you know, we have to be in tune with God each and every day of our life. That's the reason why Bible reading, prayer, and communion with God is very important in our daily life every day. Is so that we will be willing, and so that we will not stumble over ourself to go against what God tells us to do each and every day. And so this was a restriction. The man in Egypt had said they could not see him unless they brought Benjamin. And of course I'm getting them mixed up. Jacob was troubled about this. Without food they would starve. However, if he sent Benjamin, he might lose him. You know, poor old Jacob, you know, he was getting up in years. And, you know, he had quite a dilemma here set before him. I'm going to die one way or another. If I send Benjamin and Benjamin don't come back, I'm going to die, you know. And if I don't send Benjamin and we don't get food, I'm going to die. So, you know, Jacob was kind of in a dilemma there. But, you know, God was behind the scenes, and God was taking care of them. Even in this situation that it looked like Jacob was backed up against the wall, God was still there working with them. And so let's go to verse 8. And Judah said unto Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, and we will live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones. I will be surety for you, of my hand shalt thou require him. If I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee, then let me bear the blame forever. He's already got the blame of Joseph on him, and he knows what that feels like, but yet he's willing to take the blame of Benjamin also. But his heart has been changed, and we will see this here later on. He is serious in what he's saying here.
And Judah was the one that suggested that they sell Joseph to the Ishmaelites. That was his idea.
Simeon was the one that kind of held up for Joseph. But yeah, Judah was the one. And so he's got, of course, I don't think Jacob ever probably found out that he was the one, unless it had been later, that he was the one that kind of was behind getting rid of Joseph. Well, of course, still, that is a secret that was kept with the boys until they found out who Joseph really was, at least that long, and maybe even longer. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, the boys might have talked between themselves, but Jacob had no idea of that. To persuade his father to let Benjamin go, Judah makes a promise. Send the lad with me, I will be surety for him. Am I saying that word right? Surety? Insurance, you might say. Responsibility. collateral, that's a good word, for him. If I bring not unto thee, let me bear the blame forever. Let me bear the blame forever. That was a big promise, but Judah, I think, really meant it, as we shall see. He had a painful memory of one thing when he did not bring a brother back. And I think he did. I think that ate on him for 20 years and longer. That was it. I think he woke up to the fact that this is not going to happen again. I'm going to do everything I can, even if it means my life. I'm going to bring Benjamin back. I think he felt that way. Let's go into the next reading there, verse 11. And their father Israel said unto them, if it must be so now, do this. Take of the best fruits in the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present. A little balm, a little honey, spices and myrrh, nuts and almonds. Oh, he's going to try and make sure that they appease this fella, or whoever they're dealing with. They're going to appease him one way or another. They're going to try to anyway. If it don't work, why, well, we done all we can do. And you know, we have to be that way when we get saved. Bring ourselves and lay ourselves out before God and say, here, Lord, all is yours. Whatever it is, whatever you can do with this soul of mine, it's yours. You know, we have to get to that place before we can get saved. And that's what he said. And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sack of your sacks, carry it again in your hand. Peradventure it was an oversight. Take also thy brother, and rise, go again unto the man. And and then this here next verse is, and God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother, which he's talking about Simeon, that's in prison, and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved is what that word is. Sorrow for the children. You know, nobody wants to lose their children. Nobody wants their children to die before they do, you know. And that's not the way it's supposed to be, really. But it happens. There's times that it happens, you know. You know, as we get older, you know, and, you know, as we were born as children, you know, some of us had grandparents and parents and siblings, you know. And, you know, lots of times, not all the time, but, you know, the grandparents goes first, you know, and you'll go to the grandparents' funeral. And then you'll go to your parents' funeral, you know. And then you might go to your siblings' funeral. Or your siblings will come to your funeral. One or the other is going to happen, you know. And you know, but you know, you think your children, oh, they're going to outlive me. You know, that's kind of a automatic that your children, or my children's going to outlive me. But no, it's not automatic. It's sometimes where children will die before your parents. And Jacob is still alive, you know. And then, of course, as I was making that statement of how, you know, your children, and, you know, and then sometimes one of the spouses is going to go before the other spouse too, you know. You either be going to a funeral or your spouse is going to come to your funeral, one or the other, you know. So, you know, but that's the way it is. That's the way God has set it up. And like I said, then children comes, you know, and this is what Jacob did not want to happen that any more of his children, he's already lost one, no more of his children to die before he does, you know. And I know I've got an aunt that she had 4 children. Of course, she's up in her 90s, and she had 4 children. She's already went to 2 of her children's funerals, you know, and that's hard on her. That has been hard on her. One of her children went about 20 years ago, and one of her children went probably about close to 10 years now, you know. And one of them is one of the children that is left is a little older than I am, and then one just a little bit younger than I am, and you know, and she's up in her 90s, you know. If another child dies, it'll be awful hard on her, because that'll be 3/4 of her children gone. But you know, but that we have to accept. For some reason, God has allowed that to happen, you know. But here Jacob decides that okay, one way or another, we're going to have to get food. And the conditions on getting food is sending Benjamin, who I don't want to send, but we're going to have to send him. And so he decides, Jacob listens, they must have food, so he gave in. He told them to take the man a present and to take double money. Why double money? Well, actually they got the money, they got the food that they got last time for free, because they got the food and they got the money that was put back in their sacks. So they more or less got the money, got the food for free. So they want to pay for it. They want to be honest. They want to pay for that. And they want to take money to pay for another batch of food, because they've already used it up. And so that's the reason why they took double money. And the money that was returned the first time, and the money for more corn also. They could take Benjamin also then. But Jacob then added a prayer. And that verse 14, God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother, which he is talking about Simeon, and Benjamin. You know, I need my family back with me. And I don't need one of them to stay down there. He's already had one to stay down there, Simeon. Jacob trusted God, and Jacob loved his children. You know, he did. He trusted God. You know, there was times when Jacob, you know, he was kind of an ornery feller, you know, in his younger days. He kind of tricker, you know. How do he get the birthright? From his brother, you know. And, you know, by having porridge already made up, and his brother comes in hungry, and he says, give me some of that porridge. Oh, I will. Yeah, I'll give it to you, but you got to give me your birthright. You know, remember that? Yeah. Well, you know, nothing was settled until it came time for Jacob to bless one of them. And so, you know, that was the final thing to happen. And so that was a trick too. You know, one of the boys was hairy, which was Esau, the firstborn. Jacob was not hairy on his arms and all. And so they took animal skin and made him hairy and went in. Of course, Jacob was blind. He couldn't see very, very good. Isaac, yeah, Isaac, that's right. And Jacob goes in, and you don't sound like Esau. And yeah, let me feel you. Oh yeah, you're hairy like Esau is. Okay, and he blesses him. And so when Esau finds out that, why, Jacob has to run for his life then, and then there was some trickery done with his father-in-law then, and just all kinds of things, But, God had a plan. God had a plan, and now it's come down to Jacob here is kind of reaping what has happened. Be sure your sins will find you out. I think we heard that quoted here not too long ago, and it's very important there. There's quite a little reading. I'm going to go ahead and read verses 15 through 25 if you can put up with my reading here, and I'm going to read that kind of to let you know how everything's happening here. And the men took their present, took double money in their hand, and Benjamin, they rose up and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, "Bring these men home and slay and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at home." And at noon. And what he is talking about slay as slaying an animal to eat. He wasn't talking about slaying them. He was talking about slaying an animal to eat. And the man did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men unto Joseph's house. And the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, "Because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time were we brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us and take us for bondmen and our animals." And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house. We're in a predicament here. Yeah, it sounds like he's kind of buttering us up, but he may be buttering us up to kill us or to make us bond people is what he's talking about. And said, "O sir, we come indeed down at the first time to buy food, and it came to pass when we came to the inn that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of the sack, our money in full weight, and we had brought it again in our hand." Here it is. We've got it here. We want you to know what's going on here. That's what they're telling him. "The other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food." We brought money down here to pay for the first food because it was returned back in our sack. We have another bunch of money over here to buy food so we can take it back to our starving family. "And other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. We didn't do it, and we don't know how it got there." And he said, "Peace be to you, fear not. Your God and the God of your father have given you treasures in your sacks. I have your money." And he brought Simeon out unto them. Brought him out of the prison. Remember, Simeon how long had he been in prison? I don't know. But it had been a while because they have used up all the food. So it wasn't just a week or two, I don't think. I think it's been longer than that, But they bring Simeon back. Wasn't that quite a reunion? Don't you think that was quite a reunion? One brother missing. There's 11 brothers, and one's missing, and then they bring him forth. And I'm sure that they thought, well, he's alive. They didn't kill him while we were gone. So that was a good reunion, I would say. A very good reunion. "And the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet and gave their animals provenders." Gave them food to eat. "And they made ready the present against Joseph come at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread with them." Okay, so this is what's happened now. And now we're going to pick up on verse 26 there in your lesson. "And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth." Does that ring a bell? Bowed themselves. They did that the first time, remember? They bowed themselves again to the earth. Don't you think Joseph thought, yeah, here we go again, my dream's finally coming true. You know, the dream that I had when I was young and at home, it's coming true again, you know. And he asked them of their welfare and said, Is your father well? The old man of whom ye spake, is he yet alive? He could have passed away from the first time to the second time. See? And so he's asking, How is your father? And what do they say? And they answered, Thy servant, our father, is in good health. He is still yet alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obedience. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, Is this your younger brother, of whom you spake unto me? And he said, God be gracious unto thee, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brother, and he sought where to weep. And he entered into his chamber and wept there. And he washed his face and went out and refrained himself and said, Set on bread. He got to see all 11 of his brothers now. It's all complete. He hasn't seen his father yet, but he's seen all the other 11 of his brothers then. And this was his full brother. Benjamin was his full brother. You know, he probably wondered, how did this boy grow up? Did he have to put up with a lot of the stuff like I did? You know, was the other brothers jealous of him like they were jealous of me? Or was it because of the dreams and one thing that caused them to be jealous? Or was it because of the mother, you know, that they were jealous of me? I don't know. That might have run through his mind. It might have not. But, you know, he was wondering all about this. But Joseph was, I am assure to you that Joseph was elated to see all of his brothers. He did not have animosity or any bad feelings toward his brother, resentment. What other words can we use? To get back at him, revenge on him. None of that was in his mind. None of it. He had followed God even down here in Egypt. He had followed what God told him. You know, he had many opportunities to get away from God down here in this land. He had many opportunities that he could have just give up and says, it's not worth it. But he knew that there was more to it than what he could see. And that's what he was looking forward to, was that. Let me go ahead and read. Let's see, the meeting with Joseph. Joseph came and they gave him the present, bowed themselves to him. Remember again Joseph's dream of the sheaves. Their sheaves bows to his sheaves. Joseph asked about their father. They bowed again and made obedience. It was as God had foretold. Joseph saw Benjamin, his own full brother. He asked about him and blessed him. Then he had to hurry out, for his heart was tender and the tears was coming, you know. And so he had to hurry out. And he went alone to his room and wept, then washed his face and went out to dinner. He was not ready to tell his brothers who he was yet. Let me read verses 32 through 34. And they sat on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians which did eat with him by themselves. So in other words, there was 3 tables set. The ones that wouldn't eat with Hebrew people, the Hebrews, and then the ones that would eat with them. And so, you know, there was 2 or 3 tables that was set there. For that is an abomination unto the Egyptians to eat with the Hebrews, is what it was. You know, that was a lot of racial prejudice. Yes, a lot in there, you know. And you know, racial prejudice is never good.
Right.
It is never good. We are people. No matter how we talk, if we have an accent, or whether our makeup is different, or our skin color is different, it is never good to have prejudice against races, but it's always going to be. It's always going to be, it seems like. You know, and until we get right with God, we have prejudice in us to a certain extent. But, you know, when God saves us, He does something to us to where, hey, people are people. No matter what color or ethnic group or whatever, they have souls, and that's what we're interested in. All souls look alike. They don't have color. And we have to be colored blind ourselves in that respect. And they set before him, this is verse 33, and they set before him the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men, the brothers that they was talking about, marveled one of another. Have you noticed that? Gad, did you notice? He's got us set according to our birth, you know. Dan might have mentioned that to Gad, or Simeon might have mentioned it to Judah, or whoever, you know. Hey, did you see that? Ain't that something? Because we're close enough in age that he don't know whether you were born before me, but he's got it set correctly, you know. So they marveled one to another. And he took and sent messes unto them from before him. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him. Trying to set up to see if they were still jealous of one another. That's what he's doing. He's really trying to set up a trap here for them and to check and see. I say set up a trap, but I don't think that's what he was doing at all. He was just testing them. And you know, we as Christians will run into what we might think is a trap, but it's something to test us to see where we're going to stand, how we're going to stand, and how we're going to address the situation that we get into, you know. You know, this is a lot like Christian living, you know. God will test us from time to time. God will not give us temptations. I don't think God really tempts us, but He tests us. Is there a difference between temptation and test? I think so. But you know, we have to be aware of ourselves at all times and be aware of where our relationship with God is at all times. And it all comes back to, what do we do each and every day? Do we commune with God each and every day? Now, I've already mentioned that this morning. Do we read our Bible? Do we pray? You know, I can't stress that enough, that how important that is, because we never know. When we walk out our front door of a morning, we never know what we're going to run into. And we're going to run into situations every day, and more than one situation each day, that we're going to need God.
That's
Because we need God every minute of the day. We need Him every minute of the day. I mean, you know, you think, oh, well, today everything's going to go pretty smooth. Everything's going to go just like I think it's going to go. And so I will skip Bible reading today. Try that sometimes and you're going to have problems that day. It's happened to me before. You know, I think, well, I don't think I need to read quite as much in the Bible, or I think I'll not read today. You know, it'll get you. It'll get you every time. And I think, oh Lord, I should have read my Bible. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. And we have to do it. We have to do it every day. There's a point to ponder. It's about the third one down, and I'd like to read that there. The testing of the Lord. To tell his brothers would have dwarfed Joseph's purpose. But if they had known the love in his heart while he spake roughly to them, and I've got that love in his heart underlined, so keep that in your mind, and I'm going to go ahead and read this. If they had known the purpose of the hard things he made them bear, and what the outcome would be, they would have bore the testing without fear and with courage. Now, let me go back. And now remember what I said. Here's what I wrote down when I was studying this. We know God's love, and we know how God communes with us each and every day. You know, each and every day. Sometimes we may think that God's a little bit hard on us. Well, Joseph was a little bit hard on his brothers there, you know, by making conditions of bringing Benjamin with them. He knew that it was going to be hard on his father, but he done it anyway. And you know, it's all for the good always when we deal with God. We know God's love, and we can be without fear and with courage because we know who we are serving in that. And you know, Joseph was a type of Christ in that. But you know, if we might think that the love in God's heart, we understand that. But then the rough things that comes along and the hard things that may be put upon us that we may think is hard, God is not going to put anything on us that's going to hurt us. And we can be assured of that. Each and every day, we can be assured. If we think God talks a little rough to us, He's trying to straighten us out, probably. He's trying to get us in a straight and narrow way, you know. He's trying to maybe swat us on the bottom a little bit, you know. And how many of us likes them swattings on the bottom? I never did like them when I was a kid and growing up at home. I didn't like them. But you know, I can look back now and I think, Dad, you done the right thing. Mom, you done the right thing. Where would I be if I didn't have those swattings, you know, that I got? Where would I be? I probably wouldn't be here, you know, in the family of God. You know, that's a very good possibility. But you know, and you know, that can be teachers or anything. I can remember my 6th grade teacher. I was always a little bit, yeah, and tried to get by, you know, in school. And, you know, I didn't make the best of grades, you know. And I got a teacher that I would rather have had this one teacher because she wasn't near as strict as the one that I got, you know. But boy, I got the one that was more strict, and I knew she was kind of strict, you know, and I never will forget. I think it was the first day or two, the recess bell rang, and of course, you know, all of us kind of closed our book and was waiting to go outside for recess, because that was my favorite subject, was recess, you know. And she said, "What'd you close your books for?" Well, that was the bell for recess. No, we're staying in for recess. We got work to do, you know. That was the hardest thing you ever heard. I mean, yeah, you're not going to give us recess, you know. Well, you know, you don't question her. You just think that in your mind. You're not going to give us recess, you know. But, you know, I had her for a whole year, and it seemed like 6 years, you know, but I had her for a whole year. And you know, she always said, well, I'm getting, and that is 6th grade, and that was still grade school for us. And we were going to go then into junior high and high school, which was all under the same roof, you know. And she always told us, says, well, I'm getting you prepared for the big school. That's what she'd always say, you know. And oh my, that was rough, you know. But you know, years later, I ran into her. And I told her, I says, Miss Ruth Ingalls, I says, I am going to tell you something that at the time I thought you was the worst teacher I could ever have. But I look back now and I says, I am so thankful for you and what you taught me my 6th grade year, that in order to get through high school, junior high and high school, I think it was because of you is the reason why. And she told me, she said, well, I appreciate you telling me that, you know. But, you know, and I can look back and I can think, you know, that was one of the best things that could have happened. I didn't like it at the time. It's a lot like conviction. We don't like it at the time, but we look back and that's the best thing for us. And, you know, this is the same way here. We know that God has the love for us in His heart, that He is not going to put us in a predicament to what's going to harm us. And that's exactly what Joseph was doing with his brothers there. And it goes on and it says, God tests His children. Whom the Lord loveth, He chasteneth and scourges every son whom He receiveth. You know, we can be thankful for them scoldings and them chastenings and them scourgings and those guidance that He gives us. Sometimes, yeah, it might warm up our backside a little bit. It might hurt for a little bit. It might be embarrassing for a little bit. Well, you know, what's Sister so-and-so going to think about me, or what's Brother so-and-so going to think about me if I get up and I say, you know, I thank God for correcting me here. You know, that's not a bad thing to do. That's not a bad thing to do, you know. And if somebody says that and you're listening, it's not ha-ha, you know. It's, I'm going to be praying for you. And, you know, and I'm glad you went through this test and succeeded through this test. Because we're not in a race to beat somebody. We're in a race with people. We're in a race with people. Just remember that He loves you. He has a good purpose in all that He does. And the outcome will be glorious. Sometimes we don't think it at the time. I didn't think think of it as being glorious my 6th grade year, but later it was the right thing to do. Cast not away therefore your confidence, which has great recompense of reward. And so I'm going to leave that. I have one more. What we know about Jesus is more than they knew about Joseph. That's all. I'll end it right there then.